Hey nerds, welcome back to Nerd News. I'm your host Daniel, and today we're going to be discussing multiple supervillains doesn't work in the movies. Now, this may be obvious or it may not be, but I want to analyze some movies with more than one supervillain. All of the movies I'm going to mention Batman is mostly Batman and Spider-Man. The reason I think for putting so many villains in the Batman and Spider-Man franchises, they both have huge rogue galleries in the comics. And the best stories of theirs is when they have a lot of their rogues. You know, Batman has Hush, the War of Jokes and Riddles, the Long Halloween, and that's basically every single Batman villain of all time. And the Spider-Man has the Sinister Six, Spider Island, and so much more. Which is really ironic, but that's video for another day. Now let's get into my list. Let's start off with Batman. I'm going to first talk about Batman and Robin, the movie, I mean. Not Batman Forever because I've never seen it and I've only seen little clips of Jim Carrey freaking the fuck out. Batman and Robin is a very weird movie, but it does have its charm. It also has three villains: Bane, Poison Ivy, and Mr. Freeze. Three is a very bad number in these movies, just to let you know. The movie starts with Mr. Freeze robbing a museum while making so many stupid puns, and it's very fucking annoying and obnoxious. We later learn that Mr. Freeze's wife is dying and he needs the ice to help her. So it's very hard to feel sad for this man while being bald and blue in the first place. But while he's saying, you know what killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. Yeah, it's very stupid. And him saying freeze whenever it's very dumb and very just out there. Also, this is just not who he is in the comics. And I understand that comics don't always matter. Comics accuracy doesn't always matter. But that's just, they just got the character wrong. He's not a jokey villain. He's a very sensitive and heartfelt villain, basically. Next is Poison Ivy. Her plants get cancer. Her plans get canceled about making a garden, and she gets very mad and kills someone, and then becomes a plant herself. Does that sound confusing and very weird? And no human being on the planet would ever do that? Yeah. I mean, her motives just aren't very relatable because who the fuck would kill someone over plants? I understand that you care about plants and, do what you're into, but kill someone? Now for the last and probably the worst offender, Bane. He's just a walking grunting meat sack in this movie. In the comics, Bane is not stupid. He's actually one of the smarter of Batman's villains. I mean, he even figured out Batman's secret identity. The studio was probably like, there are too many villains in this movie, and we have to make this guy dumb with no character motivations and no backstory. We just have to be like, hey, this guy's just a brute. Later on in the movie, Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze work together to defeat Batman and Robin, and blah, 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 blah. They win in the end. After the Bat credit card, I just really zoned out of the movie, though. The main problem with this movie is that the villains are not relatable and not comic book accurate. But the villains also seem to tap out in the movie, like when it comes convenient. It starts with Mr. Freeze, and then we learn some Poison Ivy stuff, and we learn some more Mr. Freeze stuff, and then they just seem on two separate story themes for a while, and that's before they even team up, which is very disappointing, just very distracting. The next Batman movie we're going to talk about is Batman Begins. There are two villains in this movie with the Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul. I mean, I guess technically three with Carmine Falcone, but I won't count him in this movie as a villain because he was there for like 2 seconds and then he died or whatever. So Ra's al Ghul wants Batman back in the League of Shadows after training with him for years and thinks that Batman's place is with the League of Shadows. Batman obviously says no, so Raz threatens Gotham City. Bruce stops him. That's fine, that's fine character motivation. I think it's okay. He wants a student back. But we learned that Scarecrow has been drugging prisoners with fear toxin and scaring them. And later on in the movie, in the chaos of the battle of Ra's al Ghul versus Batman, Scarecrow thinks this is a good opportunity to go on a horse and scare more people, citizens. and then Batman fights him for 5 minutes, and then he's knocked out. That's it. That's the only interaction we get with him and Batman. Scarecrow was bullied, so now he wants to bully and scare random people to feel powerful, which is okay character motivation, but we never really got that lead up. You know what I mean? It's just weird. It's just, where did this guy come from, really? He's not connected to Batman in any way, Bruce Wayne or Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul and him never even met in this movie. The only reason Batman even hears about this guy is because Rachel, Bat's crush, basically, is attacked by him. I know the reason that they had him in this movie was to send a message to overcome fear, and that was basically the overarching theme of this movie, which is they wanted to just nail that thing in the coffin, basically. It just feels random from this story. They should have at least tried to connect him to more of a man's, like, to connect him to Bruce Wayne. You could have done that. He was just basically a random guy in this movie, which he basically is in the comics. I'm not saying they didn't get him comic book accurate, but he's not part of the movie, basically. He's just like, I'm scaring people. And then we didn't get a lead up for the final fight. He seemed like a waste, basically. I'm going to skip over The Dark Knight for right now and very briefly talk about The Dark Knight Rises. This movie has two villains, basically, with Bane and Talia al Ghul. Catwoman doesn't count because she's mostly a good guy in this movie. Bane is the main villain, and Talia comes at the very end to get her revenge for Bruce basically killing her father, but he didn't actually kill her. He basically did that to himself. This movie is pretty good, but I think they revealed Talia being a villain a little too late for my taste, where it's like, there's like 5 minutes left, dude. There's like, not 5, but it's like 10 minutes left, and we get all this explanation. I'm like, just punch each other, realistically. Like, Batman is defeating Bane, and then she's like, I'm gonna stab you, and that's basically the end of it. Pretty good movie overall. This is a very rare case, and later on I'm gonna go through more cases of very good superhero movies like this. But that was the only problem with this movie, in my opinion. Like, we didn't really need Talia al Ghul in there. She is connected to Bane, and she does call back the first film, where it's like the trilogy arc does end with this, which is pretty good. But she didn't have to be in this movie, basically. Okay, I've talked about Batman enough. Let's move on to some Spider-Man movies. The first offender we're going to talk about is Spider-Man 3. This movie has 3 villains, which is a very unlucky number: Sandman, Venom, and the Green Goblin. So stay with me, because this movie's a handful. Sandman accidentally kills Uncle Ben to pay for his daughter's medical bills. So basically, we learn that he's not a bad guy. He just didn't have any other options. He later gets sand powers and becomes evil. Eddie Brock, who turns into Venom, is a photographer for the Daily Bugle, battles with Peter Parker for his photographer position. Peter catches Eddie for editing a picture of Spider-Man, which is illegal in journalism. Peter gets him fired, so Eddie asks God to kill Peter. Yeah, no joke. Holy shit, this guy is psychologically insane. I mean, getting fired sucks, but not that much. When Eddie got the symbiote in the comics, he was having the worst day, like, of all fucking time. This guy, like, must have, like, walked under a ladder with a black cat and broke a fucking mirror. This guy, he got fired. His dad disowned him for it. His girlfriend left him for it. And he found out he had cancer, all in the same day. Now, basically, his dad disowning him and his girlfriend leaving him was because he got caught, just like in the movie. So I guess you can blame Peter somewhat for that. But like, he just lost his job. He did lose his girlfriend in the movie because of Peter. So I can understand why he would want. But like, dude, you dated her went on 2 dates with her, and he wants God to kill her. Anyway, I'm over that. That is not a good reason to ask God or anyone to kill someone. Now the movie's version just seems like a little crybaby. He also tells jokes as Venom, which never happens in the comics. He like says like, I'm gonna eat your head off, and that's like the funniest thing he says in the comics. Maybe they were trying to throw in a little carnage in there to make it a little more psychopathic, but it was just weird to have him say, "My spider sense is going off," as a dick joke. If you saw the movie, you know what I'm talking about, and it's very weird and strange. Now on to the Green Goblin, the Harry Osborn version. I mean, not the dead guy version. In the last Spider-Man movie, Harry finds his dad's secret goblin cave and decides to kill Spider-Man because Harry thinks that Spider-Man killed his father. Harry gets bumped in the head, basically, and a bunch of other shit happens. It's very weird. Harry's Deus Ex Machina butler tells him that his father wasn't killed by Spider-Man and he killed himself accidentally, and decides to help Spider-Man against Venom and Sandman. He also tries to make Mary Jane and Spider-Man break up, which is a very weird motivation that I just don't like Spider-Man and Mary Jane in the movies. It's very dumb. The problem with this movie is that there are too many villains and the storyline can't keep up with them. One minute we're fighting Sandman, the next it's Green Goblin, and the next it's fucking Venom. It's very weird and out of nowhere. Now Venom does come in at the end, but Green Goblin, Sandman, Green Goblin, Sandman. It's very they jump from one storyline to another, and then Peter Parker and Mary Jane, which I'm not going to get into, but it's very dumb, and there's too many storylines to balance, and the movie couldn't keep up with it. These characters once again just tap out once they're not needed for the script and come back a half hour later. Also, these villains are not relatable in the fucking slightest. If Sandman is not a bad guy, then why does he choose to fight Spider-Man with Venom? Venom convinces him to fight him when Spider-Man at this point thinks he's dead. He thinks Sandman is gone or at least out of his sight. But why not lay low and get money for your sick daughter, dude? Why even put yourself out there and just... Oh, I'm going on a rant, but Spider-Man thinks you're dead. This is awesome. Everyone in the world thinks you're dead at this point. This makes no sense to fight. Oh, goddamn it, I'm going to have a brain organism. Eddie just is crazy, and Harry is just stupid for not realizing that his father died by himself. There are too many fucking villains. God, this movie's stupid. I guess we're up to the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Okay, we all know this movie is bad. Do I really have to go over this piece of heart garbage? Okay, good. Okay, I'm not gonna talk about this piece of shit. So we've talked about the bad. Now let's talk about the good, maybe even great movies with multiple villains. For our first example, let's talk about Spider-Man Homecoming. The villains in this movie are the Vulture, Shocker, and the Tinkerer. I know, the main villain is the Vulture, but the Shocker and the Tinkerer are just little Easter eggs. This is the best way to have a good story while making tons of fans happy. Very simple, but has never been done before. And why hasn't it been done before? Because people want to get the full experience of like the Shocker or Venom, and maybe that's not the best way to do it. I mean, the Shocker in this movie has no motivations. He's just a reference. You get to see his kind of outfit, but that's really it. All I really care about in this movie is the Vulture, and I cannot say better enough. The Vulture is the best MCU villain besides Thanos, but Thanos I don't really count. But Vulture is literally the best MCU villain. He's so relatable. A blue-collared man just trying to make a living for his family and trying to stay low and out of the sights of the Avengers, and he has nowhere else to go. That is so, I have no choice kind of move, which I die for. I love Breaking Bad. I love these things, and I would have liked Sandman, but he didn't fucking lay low. Okay, I'm not getting back into it. But this is a great way to make tons of fans like, hey, I know that, and also have a great story. Okay, now we've up to the best multiple villain movie of all time, and I said I was going to talk about it, The Dark Knight. It is arguably the best superhero movie of all time. Some consider it the best movie of all time. It's a very good movie. I can't deny that. It's amazing. It's spectacular. And I'm not going to say cry-worthy, but it did make me feel something. It's very good, well done. Acting, directing. It's a very good, well-production movie. But it does have two villains, so You might be like, Danny must fucking hate this movie. No, I don't. I very much enjoy it. But this movie does the two villains right. So we have Joker. He's the main villain. He doesn't have a backstory, but that's who the Joker is. He's just psychotic, and he just wants to prove that Batman is just as crazy as he is. Very simple and very interesting. We see that play out through the whole movie towards the very end, right before the movie's 15 minutes out. Then throughout the whole movie, we see Harvey Dent, his journey to become Two-Face. His journey. This movie is basically his origin story, and that's how to do it. Basically, Joker was like, I created Two-Face, and you think I wouldn't have a fucking failsafe? You fucking idiot, Batman. Now, Two-Face is killing people, and that's on you. That's on you. So we see this whole movie, the origin of Two-Face, which is very well done. The Joker killing people. So we only get one villain at the beginning, all the way through. We see this interesting origin of Two-Face while he's still on the side of good. And then, boom, when the Joker's finished, we move straight on. The Joker's done. He's gone. He's been defeated. And then Batman has to take care of Two-Face from stopping what he's about to do. That is the best way to do it. Just like, okay, this villain's done. He's good. He's gone. Origin's done. And then we have one final fight at the end with Two-Face. And you might be like, Danny, well, there was no setup with Two-Face. That's why you hated Scarecrow. And the reason why you hated Talia at the end is because she came out of nowhere. Well, one, there was a setup because Batman and Harvey have been arguing of how to do things and the right way to do things throughout the entire movie. So there's a setup with that. And he didn't come at the very end where it's like, I'm bad now. He had a whole setup. He's been burned. He's been tortured. He lost the love of his life. I mean, Jesus Christ, this man has been through the ringer. And he's Two-Face. He gone and say, bad day, one bad day. The Joker proved his point. Even a man, the White Knight of Gotham, as told, can go insane. That is such a good story. Now, we're up to the conclusion at this point. As I said, we're up to the conclusion at this point where I've talked about several films, like more than I probably should have. And it's very straining on my body, and I'm very tired. Like almost 8 films. I am very exhausted right now. But I feel like I had to make this video. This is a video that has been on my mind for a while now. And I just don't understand how superhero creators don't understand what makes a good superhero movie and what doesn't. Now, I've never made a movie. I understand they're very hard and very difficult. And with a video I made a couple of days ago about what makes a good video, I don't make stuff. I don't make movies, video games, comics, as though I wish I did make comics. I don't make it. All I can do is analyze and watch these movies and say, hey, this is what I didn't like. Can you try to make it better? That's all I can do. Now, I sound like a whiny brat, which I basically am, but I'm trying to help. Now, these movies are mostly with Spider-Man and Batman, as I've mentioned. Why is that? Because they have huge rogues galleries that the producers and directors want to make the fans happy with, like, I love all these characters, and just fit them all in. Now, I've told you 2 examples that are very good and do it very well, and I do consider some of my favorite superhero movies, but I've told you other examples, many other examples, that have done this badly. Now, should I say there's no reason that any movie should be multiple supervillains? No. Well, maybe yes. It's very weird. If you can do it right, do it. But if you can't, then don't. Really, it's not worth the pacing pacing malfunctions, the just tap out malfunctions, and no character backstory or character understanding, relatability, and it's not worth it. Now, all these movies, I'm not saying these movies are bad for the reason they have multiple villains. The Amazing Spider-Man is bad for other reasons. Batman and Robin is criticized for other reasons. But I do think Spider-Man 3, that's the reason why it failed, basically. The Dark Knight Rises, which I do think is a good movie, but it does have that one flaw. Batman Begins, I do think, is also a good movie, but it has that flaw. So there is definitely uh uh basically there's something connected to these movies, and I think that's it. Do I think they should continue? I don't know. I don't have the answer. So far, what I've seen, it doesn't work, and when it does, it works great. If you can do it, it's gonna be a great movie. But if you do it wrong, it's gonna be a pretty shitty movie. That's why I'm very scared for Spider-Man and the Sinister Six movie. When that eventually comes out, that was hinted at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming. Now we have Scorpion, who is probably going to be on the team because he's basically starting the team. We've only seen one movie. He's going to be in the Spider-Man Far From Home movie. The Vulture has already been set up, so we don't have to set him up. So there's 4 more guys left to fill. And if you set up like one character in this movie, that's like 3 more. That's a lot of spots to fill. And remember what I said, 3 is that crazy number where movies just begin to be bad and just superhero movies be bad at this point. 3 villains. If you have to set up 3 villains, the movie's not going to be good. It's not. The Vulture, Shocker, and Tinker, you might be like, that's 3 villains. Yeah, but 2 of them don't get a backstory. The Tinker, he just gets like funny moments. The Shocker's just a dick that we see for like 10 minutes of screen time. The Vulture, that's the good part of the movie. I don't know. Like I said, I don't make these movies and I don't make these things. I can only criticize them and see what I like and what I dislike. And I'm telling you guys what I do and don't like. Comment down below if you do agree with me that multiple supervillains just doesn't work. And when it does, it works great. Or just say that I'm stupid and I have no idea what I'm talking about, which I basically don't. I'm basically just talking out my ass. But hopefully you can see what I'm talking about at this point and see my points. Yeah. Like I said, remember to like the video if you did. Comment down below your thoughts. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. This is Nerd News. Sign off.